Welcome back SQL enthusiasts. I'm Himavant, and in this chapter 4 of Star Agile's exclusive SQL learning series, we'll be discussing about the basic commands in SQL. If you have missed any of the previous videos, please do click on the link above. If you are someone looking to master SQL and earn a professional certification, you can go through our DevOps course link, which is attached in the description. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. Hello everyone. So in this video, we'll be discussing about the basic commands, what we can execute over here in the SQL, and also what are the different data types we have. Okay, so when I talk about the basic commands over here, we need a client software where we need to install this, but execute these commands. So to execute the commands, the client software what we are using over here is MySQL Workbench. Okay, so this MySQL Workbench, how to install and how to open it, and basically how to install, the clear guidance is provided. So if you are new to these videos, you can go through the previous videos where we have a clear guidance about how to install this MySQL Workbench in your laptops. And if in case if you have already installed and if there is any problem with your MySQL Workbench, like for example you forgot your password and if you want to reinstall it, and for that also we have another video where there is a clear guidance about how to reinstall this MySQL Workbench in your laptops, right? So once after this MySQL is successfully installed, we can open this MySQL Workbench and we can execute the commands. And what are the commands we are executing? Those are SQL commands, means structured query language commands. So any of the SQL commands if you want to execute, you need to have something called as a client software. Okay, and what is the client software we are using over here is MySQL Workbench. Okay, and how to open it? Just in your taskbar, go to the search and just type MySQL. Okay, so once after you type MySQL over here, on your screen itself you can see MySQL Workbench 8.0 CE is the first option. Just click on it and the MySQL Workbench will open. Okay, so once it opens over here, then under MySQL connections you can find something called as local instance MySQL 80. Okay, so what is this? This is a server. So when we are installing, we install the server and the client software to execute the command. So basically when you write any commands and when you are interacting over here, there need to be a server to which you need to interact, right? So this server and the client software, everything we install within our laptop itself. Okay, so as this is the initial stage where we are learning the SQL, right? So the servers, we are installing it within our laptop and we are interacting with it. So when it comes to the corporate level or when it comes to the real-time scenarios, the companies will have different servers like MySQL server or else Oracle server or else SAP server. There are different servers. Okay, so with which you will interact and you will extract the data, or basically you will interact with the data in the servers by executing the SQL commands over here. Okay, so now talking about this MySQL Workbench over here, how to log in is just under the MySQL connections, you have something called as local instance MySQL 80. Click on it. So once you click on it, you will get an option over here to enter the password. So when we are installing this MySQL Workbench and the server, we created a password for this. So what is this password is, the servers required a basic security. Okay, as this is in the learning stage, we don't need to give any strong passwords over here. Any basic password you can provide so that we don't forget it. Okay, and we can enter the password and we can log in into this MySQL Workbench and we can connect to the servers. So just type the password and okay. So once it is done, yeah, so now this is the interface how this MySQL Workbench looks over here. And here initially we'll have a page like SQL additions, guys. Okay, so this particular option is not required for us. So the number 1 where it is the cursor is blinking, there we need to execute our commands over here. And this SQL additions, if you want to remove this, on the complete right side top you have something called as 3 blue color boxes. Just unselect the third one and this SQL additions will be removed. And now initially first page is open, so this is one tab. And in a browser, how you can open multiple tabs, the same way in the Workbench also you can open multiple tabs. Okay, so now if you want to open a new tab or else if you want to open a previous file, okay, where you can find these options is in the file you have an option called as new query tab. Okay, so from here you can choose this option, or else here on the screen itself you have a shortcut. Okay, so as you can see my cursor where it has been pointed, so there you can have a shortcut option where you can directly click on it and you can open a new file. Okay, so like this, if I click on this, it will open a new file for me. Okay, so this is to open new files, and already if there is already an existing file which you want to open, then you can do it from the file itself. So from the file, open SQL script. This is the option what you need to select when you want to open a file already which is existing. Okay, so now execution. So as I mentioned over here earlier, the basic commands, what are the basic commands we can execute over here is, so first one is databases. So when I talk about a server over there, server consists of different databases, and what and all the different databases I have, and to which database I want to interact, and how to select a database or how to create a database in a server, everything we look after in this basic commands over here. And why we have complete access to all the databases over here is, as we are working in the host level, means the server what we have installed, it is within our laptop itself, means we are working in an administrative level over here where we'll have the complete access to the servers. But when it comes to the real-time scenarios, you will be provided with the access only to the specific databases which are required for your job role. Let's say for example, let's say I'm working from IT department. So then the company will not provide me the database access for the finance department. Okay, so there will be different databases. Okay, which and all the databases are required for us, they will only provide the access for only certain databases. But as here we are working in an administrative level, we'll have the complete access to all the databases. Okay, now the first command what we'll execute is, what are the databases you have and how to find this within our server. So the command should be show databases, and any command whenever you write, guys, the command need to end with a semicolon. So this is must and should. Okay, how SQL or how this workbench will understand either the command is ending in the first line or either the command is ending in the second line, how it can understand is by providing a semicolon at the end of the command. Okay, so by this the SQL or the workbench can understand, okay, so this command ends here and you are okay to execute this. Okay, so now I've written show databases, and how to execute is, initially as of now, to execute a single line of command, you can click on Ctrl plus enter on your keypad, or if you are using Mac, you have CMD. Okay, so you'll have something called a CMD over there, CMD plus enter, written. Okay, so that is the option you can execute in the Mac, and in the Windows basically you can click it on Ctrl plus enter. So now Ctrl plus enter. See, now you can see something called as a result grid here, right? It is popping out over here once after I execute this command. See, databases, information schema, MySQL, performance schema, practice DB3, 4 and SYS. What are all this? Till now we haven't created any of the databases. See, just now we opened the workbench. So previously we installed the MySQL workbench and we just now opened it and we executed our most command is, what are the databases? So we haven't created anything, but what are all these databases over here means, this information schema, MySQL, performance schema and SYS. These are the 4 databases which are created by workbench for its backend work. Means basically to store its backend data over there, it created its own databases. Okay, which is information schema, basically about information about what and all the databases you have, or what are the tables you are creating, or what are the columns you have within a table, a normal information about the databases or the tables and all. Okay, so for that data, an information schema and MySQL, performance schema and SYS. So these are the 4 different databases which are created by workbench for its backend work. Okay, we don't need to do any changes in this databases, guys, and will not disturb them. Okay, so for what and all the practice or what and all the tables we want to create, we'll create our own databases. So like for example, if you see here practice DB3 or practice DB4. So in your laptop, if you see, you'll not find any of this. Okay, so you'll only see information schema, MySQL, performance schema and SYS. Then what is this practice DB3 or practice DB4? Or these are the databases which I created for what? For my internal work. Okay, so to practice or to check with any other data for any other client. Okay, so basically I created two different databases for my own purpose, okay, which is practice DB3 and practice DB4. And execution wise, if you want to see what are the databases you have, you need to execute a command called as show databases. Okay, so this is the command, or this is the format. You can think it as a format, or you can also think it as a syntax. Syntax in the sense what? A particular structure or else a format you need to follow to execute a command. So any command you write it in the SQL, guys, you need to follow a particular structure. So by the name itself you can understand it, structured query language. So a certain format you need to follow to execute a command over here in the SQL. Okay, so now what is the first command? Show databases. Yeah, so and the names, everything should be exactly the same, guys. Syntax should be the same. So for example, if I don't give databases, if I'm giving database, what is happening? See here in the line number 1 itself, it is giving a red into mark at the line number 1 and also a red underline for the database. Means what it is clearly stating over here is, okay, so this is a wrong command what you are providing and we can't identify this command. So still, okay, so still after this a warning also, if you are still executing this command, let's say I'll do control enter here. Okay, so what happens over here now? You can clearly see the execution outputs, what is happening with that command in the action output. So at the complete bottom, you can see something called as action output. So initially, for the first time, I executed a command called as show databases. So for which it is showing a green tick mark and 6 rows written, so in the message. So anytime, guys, any command you are executing in this workbench, if you are getting an error, don't get panicked. Okay, so it's not a big deal to worry about what is happening over here. The action output will give you a clear message what is the mistake you are doing. Okay, no need to worry anything about it. Okay, so how to find it? It's not a big deal for you to find out what it is, what is problem or what is a mistake over here. Just what you need to do, just go through the action output and go through the message what it is providing. See now, second time again the same command, I removed databases and I have written database. Okay, so now what it is doing, a red into mark. So if it is giving a green tick mark, you need to understand that that command is successfully executed, and if it is giving a red into mark, you need to understand that that command didn't execute. Okay, so now the command is not executed. So if it is not executed, it will give the message for you. See, now the message is you have an error in your SQL syntax. See what I mentioned earlier, syntax or the format is the important thing when you execute any command here, right? So it is clearly showing that there is a mistake in your syntax. So what is the mistake? I need to write databases, means that is the word I need to write to show the output. So if I again give databases, you don't need to write another command again and again. You can modify the same command here. So what are these commands? These are the data driven commands here. Okay, now if I give databases, see that into mark is gone, red into mark, and also the red underline is also removed. Now if I execute control enter, see, again I can see the output. So this is the command what you need to execute to see what and all the databases you have in a server. Next, interface wise, workbench is the one which will give you additional information about few certain options, which are like these databases itself. Okay, so in the left side here you can see something called as schemas. If you are not finding the schemas, in the middle of the screen at the left side you can see administration and schemas. If you are in the administrative page, click on the schemas, you will come to the schemas. Okay, so in the schemas, this is the place where it will show what and all the databases you have in your server. As this this by default databases which are created by the workbench, those will not show in the schema. What and all the databases you have created, only those databases will be shown in the schemas here. See, now if you see here, practice DB3 and practice DB4, what are these two? These are the databases which I have created. Okay, yeah. So now this is the first command about show databases, which will show what and all the databases you have in your server. Okay, well and good, this command is done. And how to execute? End it with a semicolon, control plus enter. So make sure you keep your cursor on that particular line and do control enter so that you can execute and you can see the output. Next one is, now we understood that there need to be a database. So for what? So to create any tables over here. So first the database need to be there. Within a database, tables I can create, and within the table I can insert the columns and the data. Okay, so for that, first initially what we want, we need a database. Okay, and what is the command or what is the syntax we need to follow to create a databases? So first I'll show the syntax. Syntax. What is the syntax you need to follow over here is create and database name. Means there should be a particular name given for a database case. So now if you observe here in my workbench, so what are the names I have given? Practice DB3 and Practice DB4. The same way, whatever the name you want, you can give. So there are no such restrictions that you need to give only character data or only a particular word you need to give or particular letter you need to give. There are no such restrictions. Whatever the name you want, you can give for the database. But one thing to be more cautious over here is, once you are creating a database, you cannot rename a database case. Okay, so database can be removed from the server, but a database cannot be renamed. That is the main thing you need to understand. That is the one and only restriction what you have on this database. So means, let's say I've created a database called as Practice DB. If I create a database called as Practice DB, I cannot rename it again. Let's say if I want to rename it to Practice DB 5 or 6, it is not possible anymore. Okay, so once you create a database with a particular name, that's fixed. You cannot rename a database over here. And the syntax to create a database over here is create and the database name, end it with a semicolon and execute. So anything you do it in the workbench case, anything you want to perform, execution. It's not about only just writing the command. Once you write the command, you need to execute those commands. Okay, so now following the same syntax, we'll create our own database now, which is, let's say I'll create, and the database name I'll give it as Practice DB. So practice database, basically I'm giving a shortcut name as Practice DB over here. So syntax, so create database name. Okay, now I'll follow the same syntax. I'll go to the second line, create, and the database name is Practice DB, semicolon. Okay, so there's one more thing which we need to also additionally add here is database. Okay, this is the one more word which you need to add it here. So basically the command will be create database and name of the database is Practice DB. So why the name of database is required over here is, you can create so many things in the server case, like you can create a database, or you can create a table, or you can create something called as views or indexing. There are so many additionalities what you can do by using a create command. Now what we are doing, we are creating a database. So create database and the name of the database. So I'll modify this with create database and name of the database. See, now how I understood that there is a problem over here by the syntax error. So now if I don't add this, so it is giving a mistake wrong for me here, a red into mark and a red underline over here. So now what I'll do, I'll modify it. It's okay, I understood that. Okay, so there is a mistake with the syntax. Now I need to modify this. So database. So create database and the name of the database over here. Now once after you write the command, end it with the semicolon, control enter. right? So now we created a database. Now if I go back to the line number 1 and if I re-execute this command, okay, I can execute, I can go back and I can execute this commands again. It's not like I need to go to a next line and I need to write a command over here. I'll go to the line number 1, control enter. Now if I check, see, can you see practice DB here, right? So if you execute the same way, okay, so first you can execute a command, show databases. After that, create a database of your, or whatever the name you want, you can provide and create a database. Then execute the show database again. Then you, in your screen, means in your laptop, you can see information schema, MySQL, performance schema, practice DB and SYS. This is the database which just now we created it. Okay, so sir, this execution wise, when I execute a command, it is showing me. But what about the schemas which is showing completely left side of my screen? So as I mentioned that this is the point where it will show what and all the databases I have created. But how come or why this practice DB which I just now created is not showing here? Means once after you do anything, means any modifications or any commands after you execute, just refresh. We need to refresh the schema. And how to refresh a schema? A little right side to the name schema over here, you can see a small refresh button. Okay, so click on this. Now practice DB loaded, right? So this is the command what we need to execute to create a database. And once we create a database, you cannot rename. Okay. Yeah. After this, now what are the basic understandings what we need to have over here is practice DB I created this. Now once after this is created, if I try to execute this command again, control enter, what is the problem I am facing over here now? See, now it's not like it will only show the message or an action output of the command what you executed. So from starting till the end, what and all the executions you do, everything it will show in a list. See, first show databases, the same commands I executed. Now at last what I did, I created a database and again I executed the same command. So what is the mistake it is giving? So error into mark. Error code 1007 can't create database, practice DB, database exists. So it's a simple terminology of the English language what we can understand, which is like it is clearly saying that I cannot create a database called as practice DB. Why? Database already exists, means it is clearly stating that you have already a database which is under a name of practice DB and you cannot create another database with the same name. Okay, so means what is the restriction you have? I cannot create different databases with the same name. Okay, names should be different. So now what and all the databases I created, practice DB, practice DB3, practice DB4, means names are different. What is the restriction or what kind of a restrictions it is providing basically over here is it is not letting me create multiple databases with the same name. Okay, likewise what and all the basic rules. So this is a basic RDBMS rule case. Likewise what and all the basic RDBMS rules we have over here are, first one is database name itself. So RDBMS rules. First rule is database name should be unique, in the sense the names should be different from each other, means it cannot be a duplicate name over here. So this is the first RDBMS rule which you need to follow, guys. So next, the second RDBMS rule is within a database table names should be unique. Okay, so once you have a database, within a database we will have the tables case. So those table names should be different from each other. Likewise, how this database name should be different from each other, the same way within a database table name should be different from each other. Next RDBMS rule is, within a table, column names should be unique. Means in a table you will have different columns. Okay, so basically when you see an Excel sheet over there, you will have the column names, like as employee ID, employee name, okay, hire date or department ID, or else what is the salary. Likewise, you have different names, right? The same way here, when you create a table over here, within a table you will have different columns, and within that table, based on those columns what you created, we'll insert the data. Okay, so for the data there are no such restrictions like it should be only unique over there. Why? Because multiple people can have the same name, multiple people can be hired on the same day, multiple people can have the same department, right? We cannot make it unique over there for the data. But now, what are the three basic RDBMS rules which you need to follow? First one is database names should be unique. Okay, next, within a database table names should be unique, and next, within a table column names should be unique. So these are the three basic RDBMS rules which we need to follow, guys. Okay, so likewise we created the database over here, and once we create a database we need to select the database over here, which means as the database what I created, now let's say I want to create a table, guys. Let's say there is a table called as a student, and within a table I want to insert certain data, and certain columns also I want to create. So if I want to create a table over here, first in which database, where I need to create. Okay, and also when I am creating a table and when I am specifying certain columns over here, so those columns, in that particular columns, what is the data I need to insert. Okay, if I say employee name, means what kind of a data I can insert? A character data, means there should be certain names like Ram or Ramesh or Santosh or any other names. Okay, so Joseph or Harry, any names, basically these are all the names. When I say employee name is a column which consists of the names, I cannot insert 1 2 3. Okay, so 1 2 3 or 4 5 6 or 6 7 8, like that I cannot insert the data over there, right? So likewise, whenever you are creating any columns within a table over here, they need to consist of a certain data types, case. Okay, so means when a column is created within a table, initially while creating the column itself, we'll specify what kind of a data we'll insert into that particular column, means a data type. So this is the main thing about creating the tables, is what are the data types we have. So basically whatever the data you have here, they are structured or they are been divided into different data types in SQL case. Okay, and what and all the different data types we have are, first we'll have a basic understanding about what is meant by this database over here. As I clearly mentioned earlier, database is nothing but what kind of a data you have, means 1 2 3. What is the data? A numeric data. So what data type is required to insert the numeric data? If I enter a name, let's say if I want to enter a name called as Harry, what is the data? A character data. So to insert a character data into a column, what is the data type? And next, let's say date data, means what a date consists of? An year, a month and a date, right? So to insert those kind of a data, what kind of another data type we have. Likewise, we'll first understand what are the different data types we have, guys. So we should not directly jump into the tables. Okay, so first we need to understand the basic knowledge about what are the different data types we have and how we can specify those data types for particular columns. Whenever you are creating a column, a certain data type need to be specified, right? So now talking about the data types over here. Okay, so as we are discussing about the data types over here, so before we jump into the data types, first we'll learn about 2 or 3 more basic commands, and then we'll focus into what are the different data types we have. Okay, as I explained over here what are the commands which we executed till now. So first one is how to see what and all the databases you have in your server over here. Okay, and what is the command we executed to show that? Show databases. So why we are executing a command even though if it is showing in the schemas over here is, so in this particular client software you can see in the schemas what and all the databases you have. Let's say you are using a different client software, then what happens, you might not see the schemas option over here on your interface. Okay, so interface will change accordingly to the client softwares over there, right? So now at that point, if you want to see what and all the databases you have, you can execute a command called as show databases. Next, we created a database now, and once after the database is created, before we write any of the further commands like creating a table or inserting the data into a table, any further commands if you want to execute over there, first and most important thing to do in this MySQL workbench is selecting a database. And how to select a database? Here also there is a syntax what we need to follow, which is use and the database name. Okay, so what is the syntax? Use and the database name. Whatever the database you want, select that data, enter that particular name here. So let's now what is the database we created over here? PracticeDB. And if we want to use this PracticeDB, now I'll go to the next line and I'll write a command, use PracticeDB, semicolon, control, enter. Now how you can understand either a database is selected or not is by looking into the schemas. You can see a bold coloring given for a database, guys. Okay, so now we can see here a database PracticeDB is given a bold color. So by that we need to understand that this database is selected for now. If I want to use another database, let's say this PracticeDB3 I want to select, or if I want to select this PracticeDB4, simply again in future I'll execute a command, use PracticeDB3. If I execute a command, use PracticeDB3, what happens? Instead of PracticeDB, PracticeDB3 will be selected. Okay, simple. So what is the database you want to select? Use and the database name. And next, now within this, how to see is there any tables created? For that you can execute a command, show tables. So show tables is a command what you can execute, semicolon, control, enter. So when I execute show tables, are there any tables showing up? See, in the result grid it is completely blank, in the sense we haven't created any of the tables now. We just now seen what and all the databases you have. After that we created a database for our own, and next we selected a database. Now we are seeing what are the tables. So we created the database. Within that, if there are any tables to be shown, it will show once after you create the tables. Okay, so now before we create the tables, first we'll try to understand what and all the different data types we have, guys. Okay, so talking about the data types over here, data types. First one is numeric data types. Next, second one is character data types. Next, third one is date data types, guys. Okay, so these are the three most important data types what we have in this SQL. So first one is numeric, next character, next date data types. First, talking about the numeric over here. Okay, so talking about the numeric, what and all the different data types we have over here are, for the whole numbers we have a separate data types, and next for the fractions, numeric data means it's not just only Okay, so fractions. So numeric means it's not just only the whole numbers, fractions, which are like any such data like 3.62 or 5.45. So decimal places, when you're having a decimal places, those kind of a data, you'll call it as fractions data over here. We'll first focus into what are the different data types you have for the whole numbers over here. So for the whole numbers, we have a data types like tiny int, small int, medium int, and big int. So these are the five different data types what we have just to insert the whole numbers. So any whole number, it will be the same number, right? So why this different data types again we have in this whole numbers itself means based on the size. What is the size it is allocating over there when you create a data type for a column. So first, tiny int, it will allocate a memory of 1 byte. Next, small int, it will allocate a memory of 2 bytes. Medium int, 3 bytes. Int, 4 bytes. Big int, 8 bytes. Okay, so before we jump into the data types over here, first we'll try to understand few basic commands over here, guys. So which are like what and all the databases we have seen. Likewise, what and all the tables you have in a database, or how to select a database. Okay, or the main 3 basic commands what we learn initially is how to create a table, and next how to insert the data into a table, and next how to fetch the data out from a table. So these are the 3 main basic commands we'll learn. Once it is completed, then we'll focus or we'll jump into what and all the data types we have. Okay, as I mentioned over here, a data type is required whenever you are creating a column in a table. Okay, so like for example, if I have a table called as the student, guys. Okay, so there is a table called as students in which I want to insert a certain data, which is ID. Next, student name is a column, and I'll keep one more column which is called as age. Just 3 columns, just only 3 columns I'm creating in a table, which is a table name is student, and within that students table, what are the columns I have? ID, student name, and age. Okay, so this is a table, and within this table I want to insert a data something like ID 1, name as Harry, and the age as 23, and next student ID 2, let's say Siri, having an age as 24. Likewise, I want to insert a few additional details also. So before we jump into multiple data insertion over there, first we'll try to understand the 3 basic commands, which are how to create, how to insert, how to fetch. Later, going on in further videos, we can see what and all the different changes you can do. Let's say I want to add a column called as marks. How to add a column marks to the table. Or let's say I want to remove a column called as age from this table. How to remove a column from the table. Or I want to change the name how to change the name for a column in a table, or how to change the name of the table itself. So all these modifications, or else let's say I want to insert a few additional records where multiple records I want to insert from a single line of command. Or let's say if I want to insert data into specific columns itself. Let's say I don't know the name, student name, but still I want to insert few other records with an ID and the age. Okay, like how I can insert the data likewise. Okay, all this further modifications what we can do. So before we jump into those modifications additionally, first we'll try to understand the basic things. Okay, so when we go step by step basic understanding, after that we can go into the further modifications what and all we can do. Okay, so the first thing is how to create a table over here. Let's say I have a table called as student, which need to be consisting of 3 columns, which is ID, student name and age. So how to create it and what is the syntax? So as I mentioned earlier itself, so there need to be a certain syntax you need to follow whenever you want to create any of the table over here. Okay, and what is the syntax we need to follow to create a table is syntax create table name, next open the brackets and specify what and all the columns you want. And what are the columns? So we will write the command further. First we'll try to understand the syntax. So column name, next data type. So what is the kind of a data you want to insert into this column? Next another column. So how many columns? Column 2. Next data type. Likewise, how many columns you want to enter or create, you can specify those many columns and also the data type for those columns over here. So following this syntax over here, if I want to create a table now, okay, let's say I want to create a table now which is student. So the example, the above example what I have provided, based on the same we'll create a table now. So which is create table. Next table name. So what is the table name I have here? Student. Student. Next, what are the column names? What is the first column name? ID. ID. And the data type. What is the data type I will provide for this? So initially for now we'll look into 1 or 2 data types where to understand how to create this table. Once these 3 basic commands are completed, then we'll elaboratively we'll look into what and all the different data types we have and what are the most commonly used data types. Okay, so as of now, as what is this ID? It's a numerical data what I'll insert. So to insert a numeric data into a column, a data type what we'll use is int, guys. So as of now we are using a data type called as int. So int is nothing but to insert the integer data into a column. Next, one more column is student name. So here what is the data I can insert within a student name over here? So basically student name consists of some of the other names like Ram, Ramesh, John, Harry. What are all this? This is a character data. So to insert a character data over here, we have a data type called as char. Okay, so a data type we have which is called as char. But one thing to be understandable over here, when you mention a character data type, is you need to also specify what can be the maximum character length. Okay, so length, when I say character length over here, if I say Ram, RAM, 3 character length. If I say Ramesh, RAMESH, 6 character length. If I say John, 4 character length. Or if I say Siri, 4 character length. Likewise, what can be the maximum character length for the complete data? So it doesn't bother about 1 or 2 records. What and all the data you are inserting within this column in a table, for those names, okay, for those particular details in the student name, the length you need to give a certain maximum character length, because the complete storage or the complete storage capacity cannot be assigned for the student name, right? So we need to give a certain character length here. So for that, I'll give a character length as 30. Okay, so as of now we'll look into only this int and char over here. So further going on, we'll see what and all the different data types we have for this numerical data, or what and all the different data types we have for this character data, and what can be the maximum character length I can take when I give a data type as char. All this we'll learn in the further elaboration in the data type section. Okay, as of now, student name, char, and the maximum character length as 30. Next one is one more column I have, which is age. So in the age, I'll be inserting the integer data itself. So to insert the integer data, int semicolon. See, now if you observe, everything follows the same syntax. What is the format in which I need to write the command? So create table, table name, column name, data type, column name, data type. Likewise, how many columns you want to create, you can mention the column name, and next you can specify the data type. So data type is must and should guess. So it's not like can I create a column without a data type? Means no. Okay, when you are creating a column within a table, must and should, you need to specify what kind of a data you will be inserting within that column by giving a data type. Okay, so following the same syntax, now we'll create the table. Okay, so now I'll write this command in my workbench. Create table student, next ID, after this data type will be int, next student underscore name, and the data type is char, 30. After this, one more column we have, which is age, which is of int. Okay, three columns we are creating. So a basic thing. Okay, we are not going very too complex with the creation over here initially itself. A basic command how to create a table. So create table, table name and columns, and the data types for the columns, semicolon. So now everything, all the syntax is fine. Okay, so there is nothing red into mark or red underline, nothing it is showing. Now if I execute this command here, see, even though if everything is correct, still some sort of mistake I am doing over here, which is in the action output it is showing red into mark. Okay, so why this red into mark and why it is facing over here is there is a message. Okay, so by the end of this classes or by the end of this sessions over here, what I am trying to portray is you need to be in a position, or you need to be in a situation where you need to understand what is the mistake you are doing, or you need to be in a position how to find out what is the mistake you are doing. Okay, how to find out, or where you can see what and all the mistakes you are doing, or if there is any syntax error or anything problem over here for the syntax, where you can see it, message. Look into the message and you can clearly understand what is the main problem of without this command is not executing over here. See, now command everything is correct, I have written everything syntax wise itself, but the message, if I observe here, no database selected. Okay, so no database selected in the sense databases are present. Okay, but when I try to create the student, so in my screen over here, okay, so yeah, so in my screen over here, if you see, practice DB I have, practice DB3 I have, practice DB4 I have. In which database I need to create the students table? Either it should be in the practice DB or practice DB4. It should be in practice DB, right? So for that, we need to select a database case. Even in your server, if you have only one database, or even if you have multiple databases, the first and most important command what you need to execute is selecting a database. or first and most important thing what you need to check whenever you open, let's say you closed and open your workbench. Whenever you open your workbench, the first and most important thing you need to check is there any database selected or not. Any further commands if I execute also, you will get the same error. Why? Because it cannot understand from which database you are trying to execute those commands, or you are trying to check with the data. Okay, if I want to create a table student, it should be created in practice DB. So that first database should be selected. And what is the syntax you need to follow to select a database over here is simple. So you can write use database name. Simple. Okay, once after you select this, execute this command, done, the database will be selected. So you can write it in line number 4, or you can write it anywhere. You can write the command, guys, but main thing is execution of that command. Okay, so to execute the command, okay, so you can write it here, or I can write it in the middle also. Let's say here I'll write use and the database name. What is the database we created? Practice DB. Practice DB. And see, when I don't give a semicolon, what it is doing in line number 4, it is giving an error into mark. Syntax, everything is correct for line number 4, but why it is giving a mistake over here is because in line number 3 I didn't end the command with a semicolon. See, if I remove the semicolon, what SQL Workbench is trying to understand here, it is thinking that line number 3 and line number 4 both are of single command itself. Okay, if you are writing a commands in Workbench, one particular command can continue for as many lines as we can. Okay, but how it can understand that command is ending or not is by giving a semicolon at the last. Okay, so once after I write a command use and the database name, now I'll do control enter. See, now the database is selected. So, and how you can understand either a database is selected or not? By looking into the schemas here, you can understand the difference. So if it is giving a bold coloring for the data over here, or sorry, not for the data, for the database. Okay, if it is giving a bold coloring for the database, you need to understand that this particular database is selected. If the database is not selected, you can't see this bold coloring for any of the database. Okay, so this is must and should case. Even if you have only single database also, you need to select the database first. Okay, once after the database is selected, now I can execute this command. See, the same command I'll execute again, which gave me an error previously. Now control enter. See, now it got executed successfully. You can see a green tick mark. And once the command table is created over here, now I can insert the data. Okay, so I can insert the data. After that, I can fetch the data out from a table. Okay, so now mainly where the table will be there within a database. Okay, where the databases will be there within a server. Okay, so now let's check with a small command, which is how to see what and all the tables you have in a database. Okay, so the command we need to execute is show tables and semicolon. When you write a command show tables and a semicolon, control enter. See what and all the tables it is showing? Student, which is the table which we created just now. Okay, so it is showing over here, but why it is not showing in the schemas means just in the schemas, a little right side, you have something called as a refresh shortcut. Click on this refresh. See, now for the tables you can see a right arrow. If I click on this, see, there is a table called as student in your practice DB database. Within this database there is only one table which we just now created. Okay, so table creation is completed. Now insertion. Okay, how to insert the data. So this is also a basic command itself case. We are not jumping into the complex commands over there. We are looking into the basic command now, so that we can understand what we are trying to do with the SQL over here, or how the commands need to be executed or written. Okay, so later on we'll execute additional commands. So now, to insert the data, what is the syntax is? What is the syntax you need to follow is insert into table name, next values and data. Okay, I'm again saying is this is only the basic format of inserting the data. Okay, later on we'll see what are the different ways. Okay, so now in this format I'll be inserting the data now, and now I'll write the command for the student table. Insert into, what is the table name? Student. Student, next values, and the data over here you need to give the exact count of the data what you have in the table case. So how many columns I have in a table? 3 columns, which is student ID, next the student name, next the age of the student. 3 columns I have. For that, first I'll mention ID as 1. Next one is what data type? Character. Student name is of character data type. See, ID is int, next student name is what? Character data type, right? So now, to insert the data when you give a data type as char is, you need to specify that in single or double quotations. Okay, so now the first record what I'll insert is Harry. Okay, so Harry is done. Now next one is age. What is the age? I'll give an age as 24, semicolon, and the same way we can write a command in our workbench and we can execute it. So now here also the same syntax I followed. Insert into table name, values and the data. Okay, so now I'll go to the line number 6. I'll execute a command, insert into student. So when you are inserting the data, obviously you need to specify the table name where you want to insert. Insert into student, next values are 1, comma, student name is Harry. Next the age is, I'll give the age as 24, semicolon, control enter. Right, now one record I am inserting. See, it got successfully inserted now. Next one more record I'll insert. Insert into student, values are, let's say student ID 2, and I'll give a name as Siri and an age as 23 I'll give, semicolon, control enter. See, now this is also executed. See how many records I want to insert. I can insert those particular data by using a command called as insert over here. So this is a basic, again I am saying this is a basic way. Additionally, if I want to insert any other data, and also one more thing over here is insertion commands you need to execute only once. Please don't execute them twice. If in case if you are executing them twice, what happens over here is duplicate entry will be inserted. Okay, so don't do that. Don't execute them twice, just execute them only once. Okay, once you execute them only for one time, the record will get inserted. If in case mistakenly if you are executing that command again, the record will get inserted again. Don't do that. So which is like a duplicate insertion. So duplicate insertions we can delete them, but why to insert and why to make a problem with that? If you execute it only once, it will be created. Okay, and now we inserted 2 records, guys. One is Harry, another one is Siri. These 2 records are inserted. Once the records are inserted, then I need to check. Okay, table is there, data is there within the table, and also while inserting the data also, make sure you give the data for all the 3 columns. Don't skip any of the column. Okay, so for example, if I write a command insert into student values are 3 comma, and I don't want to give the student name, so I'll directly give the age, means let's say I'll give the age as 25 semicolon and control enter. See what is the error I'm getting over here? Column count. So any error, look into the message. Column count does not match value count at row 1, means it is clearly saying that okay, so in a table you have 3 columns, but here the data what you are inserting is for only for 2 columns where the count is not matching. Okay, if the count is not matching, obviously it gives an error for you. So you don't insert like this. How to insert into the specific columns we'll learn in the future classes. Okay, this is a basic command to insert a one record, which is by inserting the or specifying the data for all the columns what I have in a table case. So don't do this one, just only first record and second record, and execution is also only once. Once this is done, now the next one, creation is done, insertion is done. What is the next command we need to, basic command we need to learn here, which is how to fetch the data out from a table. Okay, so to fetch the data out from a table, the command will start with a word called as select, guys. Okay, so what is this select is? It's a print statement. Okay, so select is a print statement in the SQL case. Okay, if I want to see the output from any of the table, the command will start from select case. There are so many ways how you want to see the data from a table. So means when you want to see the data, let's say I want to see only the first record data, or else let's say I want to see only the age from the table, or let's say if I want to see only the student names, or if I want to see only the IDs, or if I want to give certain conditions while I'm fetching the data. There are so many select commands we can write. Okay, but what is the basic command what you are writing over here? How to see the data what you have in a table case, which is, I'll write a command now. Select star from table name. What is the table name you have over here is student. Okay, so now I'll elaborate. That's a statement. Next, the star, it will fetch all columns and rows. So what it is doing, what star states over here is, it will fetch the data from all the columns and rows case. That is what star states over here. And the students, it's a table name. So basically what we can conclude from this command, print the complete data from the students table. Okay, so this is what star means. And from which table you want, specify the table name. And what is the data you want? If I want the complete data, I am writing star over here. Star states it will fetch the data from all the columns and rows case. Now I'll execute the same command in the workbench. Select star from student semicolon, control plus enter. Okay, so any command you want to execute, control plus enter. See, now what is the data I have in the students table? ID, student name and age, where I have the ID as 1, student name as Harry, next the age as 24, next one is ID Siri, age as 23. So this is how we are creating a table, inserting the data into a table and fetching the data out from a table case. Okay, alongwise what and all the another commands we have learned, how to see what and all the tables I have in a database. Okay, next how to select a database and how to create a database, and next how to see what and all the databases you have in a server. These are all the commands what we executed till now. So if I want to see what is the data I have in a table, I need to write a command which starts with select case. Now let's say I haven't created the table, but I know what are the columns I have, but I don't know the data types. Okay, let's say I want to see a further elaboration about the table, not the data. So if I want to see the data, anything related to the data, if you want to check from a table, the command will start with select case. Select is a print statement over here. Whatever the conditions you give, based on those conditions, the data will be printed. Now I'm talking about table structure. Okay, so what is the structure of the table? Means basically what are the columns I have in a table, and what is the so what are the columns I have in a table, and what are the data types I have for a column. So for that, what is the command we need to execute over here is describe, and next table name. For what table I want to see the description? Student table. So I'll give describe student semicolon, control enter. See, so as of now, just look into this field and type over here. You can see ID int, and next student name, and type as char 30, next the field name as age, and the type as int. See, now it is clearly showing me what is the description of this table. So there are two types of commands. Okay, two different commands are there. Both will give you the same output. If I write describe and the table name, it will show the description of the table. Even if I write DESC and the table name, control enter, even it will also give you the same output. If I write describe and the table name, and if I write DESC and the table name, both will give you the description of this particular table case. This is why one more basic command what you can understand here, which gives the description of the table. Okay, so these are all the basic commands over here. First one is show what are all the databases you have in a server. Next one, creating a database. Next, selecting the database. Next, within that database, creating a table. After that, checking what are the tables I have in a database. Next, inserting the data. We inserted 2 records into a table. Once after the insertion is completed, then how to see what is the data I have in a table? Select command. So next, we are writing a select command to see what is the data I have in a table over here. Next, description. If I want to check with the description of this particular table, I'll write describe and the table name. If I want to check with the data within a table, I'll write a command starting with select. Okay, so these are the basic commands over here. Now once it is done, so now we'll try to understand what is this int, or what is this char, or what is this int over here. Okay, so I mentioned int, which will give you the integer data, and next char, which gives you the character data. So both the data types are fine. Now likewise, what and all the different data types you have, okay, and what and all the most commonly used data types in SQL. Okay, so this is the one which we'll learn next. That's wrap for this chapter, guys. So let's meet in next episode for this SQL series.